Welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. Everybody, my name is Sam Levine, joined by Mitch Weinberg, and we apologize, everybody, because we could not bring you the First and Goal podcast last Tuesday. We sincerely apologize for that. We both got caught up, had some things to do, but no matter, we are back here and we are ready to talk some NFL football. So let's start off the show talking about the biggest news from the past week or so, the Julio Jones news. That Julio Jones is supposedly, or not supposedly, as we heard on live TV on the Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless show, that Julio Jones is not going back to the Atlanta Falcons. He will not return to the team in 2021. He will, in fact, play for a new team, given that the Falcons are willing to trade him, which is something that we haven't heard the Falcons say they are willing to do. It's actually interesting because we really haven't heard anything from the team, which is definitely something to keep our eyes on as this goes along, because we all assume Julio Jones will be moved because he said he doesn't want to return to the team. But at the end of the day, this isn't the NBA. You can't just force your way out of a team. You can cause a ruckus in the media and do whatever you want from that aspect. But at the end of the day, if the team doesn't want to trade you, the team doesn't want to trade you. And Julio Jones is that type of player that I wouldn't be surprised a team wouldn't want to move.
I mean, you're looking at a guy like Julio Jones, arguably top 25 receiver of all time. Just saying 25 to be safe, because I don't really think
Arguably top 5 wide receiver of all time.
Depends how much of a casual fan you are. Look, again, I've gotten into many debates over which players in there, like currently right now, are top 5 players. The other day, completely off topic, but my friend tried to convince me that Aaron Donald was a top 5 defensive player of all time.
Wrong.
It was horrendous. He couldn't prove a thing. When he hits triple-digit sacks, maybe then we'll talk, which will be next year, honestly. But again, I mean, Julio Jones is not a guy that the Falcons are going to be so willing to trade, especially considering not only his greatness and his legacy, but how much he means to the city of Atlanta and what he's done for that team. And the Falcons, yet again, are in a position of mediocrity like most teams are in the NFL right now. Can they succeed with a high-powered offense and a mid to low-tier defense? We've seen many teams in the NFL, that's what they're sticking with. Some of them, like the Titans, succeed. Others, like Dallas, don't oftentimes. And you know what? It's just, what will they do and what kind of package can they get? Because obviously they want a first-round pick for him. I wouldn't trade a first-round pick for Julio Jones at age mid-30s. Okay, I don't actually know his age right now off the top of my head.
33, just a guess, around there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to give up a first-round pick for a 33-year-old player unless it's MVP. Like, come on, I'm not throwing
MVP.
I used that
N. Give me Mitch Trubisky for 3 firsts. I'll take that any day.
Seems like a steal. But, I mean, it's not like there's a million teams lining up to trade for Julio Jones. I think that's something that's not what's going to happen. The Falcons are probably, similar to the Colts, going to be underwhelmed by the trade offers that will be presented to them. And again, we can't compare like Carson Wentz to Julio Jones, like what those offers look like. Obviously, it's a terrible comparison, but that's what the market's going to look like post June 1st. A lot of teams are going to look for bargain deals, and it's going to be very hard for the Falcons to find one for this aging receiver, who's still phenomenal, by the way.
Yeah. Just quick side note. There were some reports that the Falcons would prefer to trade Julio Jones than not. But those weren't, I wouldn't say those were the strongest reports. It wasn't something that was so wide, and so solid that you can point to and say, all right, that was just truth. I will say that was out there. Those reports were out there, though. And I agree with you. I think at this point, a week into these reports and rumors, we would have seen more rumors about trades, right? More rumors about potential trades if there were so much discussion between other teams, and the Falcons. So I agree with you that I think the market might be a little bit underwhelming, because also another thing to look at is earlier last week, I believe, the Falcons, or there was a report that said the Falcons would like to get a first round pick in return for Julio Jones. Then a couple days ago, it was reported that they would accept an offer for a second round pick for Julio Jones. So that means two things to me. One, it means that they haven't even received an offer worth a second round pick. And two, it means that they are progressively lowering what their asking price is. Kind of goes hand in hand with the first part because they aren't getting significant offers that they like, and they do want to get him out the door. So it's a very interesting situation because Julio Jones said blatantly and obviously on live television for everyone to see that he is absolutely 100% not returning to Atlanta. But at the same time, Atlanta, it doesn't seem like is getting offers that they would like to accept. And Julio Jones, you're not going to trade him away for a third round pick. I mean, let's be real, even at age 33. So let's put aside realism for a second, right? Let's say, I don't know, forget about trade compensation. Whatever a team needs to trade for Julio Jones, let's just say one of these teams can get it done. Let's talk about potential teams that Julio Jones could be traded to. What are the best fits? What are the most fun fits? What works the best? Let's just go down a laundry list of teams and talk about a bunch of possible options. Maybe not the best pick for him to go to, but I think an underrated pick and a team that makes a lot of sense for him to be traded to, I think, is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, we have to remember that they traded for Carson Wentz, and they gave up a conditional second round pick, which could become a first, a 2022 first, if Carson Wentz plays, I believe, 75% of the snaps in 2020, which, it's probably likely that that happens. So assuming that is a first round pick, the Colts won't have a first to play with. This is a very well run and traditional team who likes to have their draft picks. So I wouldn't expect them to go out and trade their second round pick after trading a first round pick to go out and get Julio Jones, a guy who is on the tail end of his career. With that said, whether it's realistic or not, I think it'd be a smart move because you're giving Carson Wentz, who has some real confidence issues, a top 5 wide receiver, arguably top 1 wide receiver in the NFL right now, and definitely the best
Top 1?
Arguably.
You want? I can't think of a viable argument for him to be top 1. Top
Okay.
5?
Okay.
Like,
Maybe not
number
at this
5.
point maybe not at this point in his career, but at this point in his career, I'd still consider him a top 5 wide receiver.
Top 5. I don't have a problem with top 5. I only have a problem with saying top 1.
Okay. I agree with that because my guy Devontae Adams is clearly number 1.
Yes.
But top 5 for sure. Julio Jones, top 5 wide receiver at this point. You're giving Carson Wentz a guy who is extremely reliable, he is extremely explosive, and he is extremely physical. I mean, I don't even need to say this. He is one of the most versatile players in the league. He is one of the best players in the league, and he is extremely, extremely talented. So giving Carson Wentz the best wide receiver that he's ever had on his team, that'll boost his confidence right there. And now you give Carson Wentz one of the best, if not the best offensive lines in the NFL, led by Quentin Nelson. Very good running game with Marlon Mack, Jonathan Taylor. One of the best wide receivers in the game, Julio Jones, and a young up-and-coming star at wide receiver in Michael Pittman. Listen, this is the team. If you get Julio Jones, this is the team, if any team, that will make Carson Wentz work. If any team is going to have Carson Wentz succeed, it'll be that team with Julio Jones on that offense. You can't put a quarterback with any talent, with even the smallest sliver of talent, and put them on that offense and expect them to do poorly.
I mean, look, 2 things. First of all, we know that Carson Wentz, based off of last year, has hero ball problems. If you're throwing it up to Julio Jones, it's more likely he's going to catch it than, I don't know, Greg Ward.
Even if you are playing hero ball. I mean, he's great at those 50-50 balls.
Okay, like, it doesn't matter that he's 33. Your height doesn't decrease until I don't know what age, but I can tell you it's not 33. Physical beast. But putting like what that roster looks like aside for a second, if you're a big fantasy player, Sam and I hopefully within the coming months talk fantasy, do a bunch of mock drafts, get you guys involved. Hopefully, like Julio Jones draft stock goes up way in my opinion, gets straight to the Colts easily is a round 2 pick. Not saying it wasn't before, but now is the draft stock increased. Carson Wentz's draft stock is by far even more increased, as if like we couldn't talk about him getting traded to the Colts. That's enough. Like giving him a true number 1 target is what's going to allow him to get you those massive points. And I think that if you're in a PPR league, he's going to get targets. He's going to get thrown the ball. Unlike in Atlanta, where he obviously will get thrown the ball, but he's sharing targets between 2 other very capable targets with Calvin Ridley, with Kyle Pitts. So trading Julio Jones as a whole, this is something to monitor if you have him in your keeper league or if you're trying to trade him, what kind of value you can get. Definitely a situation to monitor. Fantasy aside, putting him on the Colts is going to be a very interesting situation because him trading to the Colts puts them in the AFC South throne, in my opinion. I think it automatically makes them better than the Titans. The Titans defense is not great and hasn't shown me that they haven't shown me that they're great. And then like that's all you need to do the AFC South. What will it take them to get to the Super Bowl? I don't think Julio will turn them into the Super Bowl champions. Will he probably boost them up a tier from playoff contender to playoff team or Super Bowl contender? Yes. That I think is the effect of Julio Jones. I would not say though that they would be the Super Bowl favorites. I can say they're like a top 7 team to reach a Super Bowl with Julio Jones. Without Julio Jones, they're a playoff contender, and that's just about it.
You mentioned another good team, another possible option, the Tennessee Titans. And this is a team that I was going back and forth with one of my friends just an hour or so ago on Instagram about, why is the Titans a good fit for Julio Jones? Because they already have A.J. Brown, right? A.J. Brown showed last season that he can be a capable wide receiver 1. Well, this is a team, first of all, any team in the NFL, most of the time you have 3 wide receivers on the field. So first of all, there's that. And then after A.J. Brown, your second wide receiver is Josh Reynolds, who was last year the wide receiver 4 for the Los Angeles Rams and showed some flashes, but clearly is not ready to fill the holes of, fill the shoes of Corey Davis, who was almost a 1,000-yard wide receiver last year. And B, he hasn't shown that he can consistently be a starting talent. And then after him, you have Des Fitzpatrick, who is a 4th-round draft pick from this past draft earlier in the month. So getting Julio Jones, you're not only adding to a position of need, you're adding a player that is extremely reliable, will add a lot of explosiveness, and will add I'm about to say great compliment to A.J. Brown, but I don't even want to say that because they'll be complementing each other. They will be working together and they will together make that passing attack great. And it will also add a great compliment to Derrick Henry and that running game, which is something that they really needed at times last year because their passing game, Ryan Tannehill, very good last year. A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, very good last year. But at times it was lacking because they couldn't get Derrick Henry going. Their passing game worked too much off of the running game, but with Julio Jones, I think that will change. Adding Julio Jones, giving that offense another beast like that is just scary. And then you have one of the scariest offenses in the league.
I mean, that's absolutely true. And what we have to think about is a lot of teams in the NFL nowadays are making a lot of noise offensively based on the play action. Look, if we're talking play action, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Des Fitzpatrick, bear in mind they lost Jonnu Smith, who's phenomenal also.
Another good point.
Like, that's scary because you have to watch out for Derrick Henry, but then your one assignment is to cover A.J. Brown, who's a arguably top 10 receiver in the league. I think he's top 10. He does a great job. But add Julio, there's no cornerback 2 is a good match unless you're playing the Ravens, in my opinion. There's no cornerback 2 that is a good match for Julio Jones.
Whoa.
Well, name a cornerback duo that.
No. My point is A.J. Brown would be wide receiver too.
But it doesn't matter. Wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. It doesn't matter who it is. You're gonna get a miss
Either way, yeah.
offensively. That's the point. I don't know who's gonna be wide receiver 1 or 2. I mean, AJ Brown wants to give Julio his number, but the equipment staff isn't letting him.
Weird. Oh, it's that. It's the
Yeah.
equipment staff. All right, that's weird because I saw that earlier. AJ Brown tweet out, no matter what, I'm not giving up number 11. So that was pretty weird.
Because of the new rules, like they have to. Jalen Smith, I don't know if anyone saw. Jalen Smith changed his number from 54 to 9. I'm annoyed. 2 reasons. First of all, I got his jersey 54. Not very happy. And 2, he's wearing number 9. Like, come on. I don't like when teams don't retire. Yeah. That's the stuff you get. And like,
you want Tony Romo's number retired?
Well, he's a Cowboys legend, and that's about it. Like,
I will say, as a Packers fan, it bothers me that they gave Jay Sternberger number 87, Jordy Nelson's number, and not only that, but they gave Rashawn Gary, who I do really like, but they gave Rashawn Gary number 52, which is Clay Matthews' number. Like, I mean, those are 2 guys that should probably be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, definitely Clay Matthews.
Maybe I don't know about Jordy Nelson, but I can give you Clay Matthews.
Maybe Jordy Nelson somewhere down the road, but definitely not. He's not one of those like as soon as you retire guys. But I mean, if again, like going back a little bit, if Julian Edelman deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, I think Jordy Nelson deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
I think that's a take for another day. But Jalen Smith had to pay 6 figures to change his number. Hear that? 6 figures. I don't actually know the number that is, but I don't know if that's 6,000, 60,000, or 600,000, but that's insane. The fact that he has to pay that much just to change his number from 54 to 9. So that's obscene. But look, the offense is going to look good. The defense is mid-tier. As I said, can they win with the mediocre defense? Because I don't think that it is in the best interest of the Titans to give up whatever capital you have on Julio Jones. I think Julio's phenomenal. I think he'd complement great in that offense, as we both just agreed. But I think we can both agree that the Titans are better off going all in on defense to get that one change-making defensive player instead of an X-factor wide receiver.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I agree with you. I just don't know who that'd be at this point in the offseason.
I don't know who it'd be. But again, we're in the line to make believe at this point.
If you're going to make a move, if you're the Titans, I'd agree with you that it'd be smart to do defense. But from a realistic standpoint, which I understand we're stepping out of that realm, I just don't know who'd that be, and I don't know realistically a situation where that would be done. But let's talk about a team that we kind of just alluded to a second ago, the Dallas Cowboys. So the Dallas Cowboys get humiliated very often. This is a team that is not a stranger to humiliation and embarrassment. But one of the more embarrassing moments for them in recent memory happened just a couple days ago on Monday. While I was in school, Julio Jones was asked by Shannon Sharpe on live television. He was on the phone with Shannon Sharpe. He got asked, do you want to go to the Cowboys? Straight up, Julio Jones said, I want to win. Just the Audacity. Yeah. I was about to say something a little bit worse, but the audacity for Julio Jones to come out and just absolutely slam the Dallas Cowboys on national television, saying he doesn't want to go there because he wants to. I mean, he's playing into the memes. I mean, America's team, it's their year just to go 8-8 again. He's playing into the memes, and I find it hysterical because he wears a Cowboys sweatshirt one day, which I will say it is a little weird that he's not a fan of the Cowboys and he's still wearing their sweatshirt, but wears a Cowboy sweatshirt one day and then slams them on TV the next day. I just find it absolutely hysterical.
I mean, look, I have to listen to that audio clip back, but I think he said, like, oh, do you want to go to Dallas? What do you think of that? And they said, I want to win. You can interpret that as him saying, like, I just want to win. I don't think that's what he meant, but
No, I'm pretty sure he said, no, I don't. I want to win.
even still,
Not giving Mitch a break
Dallas,
here.
like, it, in my opinion, does not make sense. I wouldn't be shocked if Jerry Jones actually made a move, but I wouldn't want to see that. Like, come on. I was annoyed enough that they went. I'm sure most Cowboys Nation would agree with me. They were annoyed enough that when they went CeeDee Lamb in the first round last year, like, I get it. CeeDee Lamb has proved me wrong. Like, showing
You're
that
not
he's,
happy that you have him now, though?
yeah, in hindsight, but positional, like, skill wise, I was like, yes, great. We have a great wide receiver 3 because Randall Cobb left. But on the other side, I'm like, you couldn't have gotten us defense. But
Quick side note before we should get back on track here. But I mocked them in. I think Xavier McKinney in both of my mocks last year. You would have been fine with that.
Like, I mean, looking back at it, I'm not mad. But in the moment, it was just like, I don't know. Because I actually had them going Trayvon Diggs in the first round. Like, as crazy as that sounds, like, I had CeeDee Lamb going off the board like way earlier. You think I had Henry going to the Raiders? Like, give me a break. I don't think anyone did. But, I mean, Dallas is just, it's like, we're in the, like, fairy tale land, but, like, I think Julio is ruthless and relentless. And wherever he goes, I hope he plays the Cowboys next. Like, I don't care. Actually, I do care if we win.
So he can embarrass Trayvon Diggs?
Oh, Trayvon, I don't know, maybe Calvin Joseph. I don't know. I don't know what to tell Jordan Lewis. I don't know what to tell you. They're like, there's upside, but not enough.
Listen, either way, you know what? I can tell you either way, that corner is getting cooked. I mean, listen, Jair Alexander played Julio Jones in his rookie year, and he got cooked. And I'm telling you, Calvin Joseph, Trayvon Diggs, they're not Jair Alexander. So,
no.
Yeah, no.
Trayvon Diggs did I'm gonna introduce the next team after this. But like overall, Trayvon Diggs had a tough rookie year, had a great wide receiver schedule. He handled it like decently. I think he needs a bit of learning experience, but I think that he is sub mid tier, like just slightly below average. Like, I can't tell you average. Like, the average corner is probably better than Trayvon Diggs, if we're being honest. But you have to be really darn good to cover Julio Jones. I just flash, like, everyone take a mental picture, like, think back to when Julio Jones absolutely destroyed that Patriots corner. Went like above over him, yanked the ball.
That was great.
There's no really guarding this guy. And physical wide receivers, I mean, we saw having Trayvon Diggs, DK Metcalf. That's all I'm going to say. Now, I'm not talking about the fumble. I'm talking about the rest of the game. But heading on to a team where I could see them throwing out their traditional values, because they've definitely been doing that this year. The New England Patriots have been throwing everything away. Literally everything. Money, contracts. I don't know. That's about it. That's all you can really give away. Like, I can see Bill Belichick saying, assuming he likes Mac Jones and sees that, like, what were the receivers he had in college versus now, it's like, okay, well.
Big difference.
Like, Jacoby Myers? You've convinced, if Mac Jones come up with Jacoby Myers, like Tom Brady was able to win Julian Edelman. That's impressive. Like, tons of great quarterbacks are able to win with crappy receivers. Like, mediocre receivers. Sorry, no disrespect to Julian Edelman at all. I think he's a beauty. But if Mac Jones can find success with Jacoby Myers, like, at any point, and Julio Jones is still on the Falcons by week 5, you go all in and get him. The Patriots are in grasp. I think unless you're a casual fan, you understand that New England is a wide receiver away from becoming contenders again, and the rest of the NFL is blind right now. Because the Patriots did a great job drafting, except they need a wide receiver. I think if they can get Julio Jones, get him on the reverse side of him mossing the corner, that's where we find success in New England. Again, can they dethrone the Bills? Probably not, maybe. But I think that Trayvon Diggs is going to have not Trayvon Diggs. Tre'Davious White is going to have a lot harder of a time guarding Julio Jones than Jacoby Myers.
I think that's a great team to point out because you're talking about Mac Jones, a rookie quarterback with, like you said, wide receiver one being either Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne.
I probably shouldn't mention him. We talk about him a fair bit. 20 yards per catch. He's like the Sean
Underrated.
Jackson. Big play. That's it.
Yeah, I mean Nelson Aguilar definitely had an underrated season last year, but wouldn't call him a
one. I don't know.
wouldn't call him a wide
I feel
receiver
about
one.
that.
I'd be much more comfortable with him as more of a like reserve deep threat kind of guy, but good player. But listen, rookie quarterback, I feel like the most important thing is protection. Patriots have a good offensive line. Second most important thing, I believe, is wide receivers and reliable wide receivers. Julio Jones fits the bill. I mean, he is the most experienced, or obviously, I mean, one of the most experienced wide receivers in the NFL and one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. So you give Mac Jones, a guy who is traditionally a pocket passer and traditionally a game manager, a guy that will help him step out of his comfort zone and really pass on some very valuable knowledge to him. I think that is going to be invaluable for Mac Jones. Just the knowledge that Julio Jones brings with him. I know they play different positions, but still, wide receiver and quarterback have a very strong connection, the two positions. So Julio Jones will be able to help Mac Jones progress and develop. I really do believe that. And I really do think that Mac Jones will benefit greatly from having Julio Jones and saying Jones a lot. But I like you said, I really think getting Julio will elevate the Patriots into a playoff team. So moving it along, quickly before we head off to the next segment, I just wanted to mention the 49ers and the Ravens. I think these are two teams to watch in the race for Julio Jones. 49ers, yes, they have Brandon Ayuk. Yes, they have Deebo Samuel. So I don't think it's very realistic that they would trade for Julio Jones. But if I was John Lynch, I would definitely give it one hard look because, I mean, that's it. If Trey Lance works out, then uh, you're tier 1A, whatever it is. If Trey Lance works out, you're one of the best teams in the NFL, no doubt. So that's something I definitely look into. And then if you're the Ravens, yes, Rashad Bateman. I'm a big Rashad Bateman fanboy, but still a rookie. Wouldn't give him the reins to wide receiver one yet. So, wide receiver has been the biggest struggle for that team. Why not just go out and get a guy who is already proven and will help your team get to that next level? So, moving it on to the next topic for today. This one is kind of a two-parter. We're going to go start off with what teams out of the division losers in 2020 are most likely to go from worst to first, and then what division winners are most likely to go from first to worst. So starting it off with worst to first, let's talk about division losers. Now, Mitch, what team do you think that lost their division last year is most likely to have a very good season this year?
The title of the segment says worst to first. I want to clarify. That means they had the worst record and they will have a winning record. Can I clarify that? Because that makes my decision a lot different than saying which team was the worst versus which team will go to first. And I mean, this team could honestly do that. I have faith in our rival San Francisco, ours together, San Francisco 49ers. Look, they were plagued with injuries last year. It was not a good look for them. But you know what? They re-signed Richard Sherman, who's like good veteran presence. Defense coming back to 100%. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Jimmy Ward. That's all the players I can think of off the top of my head. Then offensively, Jimmy Graham / Trey Lance, whoever goes in when. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and a decently good offensive line. Like that's pretty obvious. Now, we talk about the NFC West a lot on this podcast, more than we actually think. We knew we were gonna mention this every single time until the season starts. This is a hard division. Can they pull it off? Yeah, I think so. I like Kyle Shanahan a lot. Will they pull it off? If the turf isn't injuring them, then yeah, they can for sure pull this off. But if they're getting injured every play, that's the only thing that's stopping. Turning injuries off, the Niners are a phenomenal team that are like they can win the division or they'll be like a 6 seed, 7 seed, depending how good the division is, because the ceiling for the Niners might not actually be reached because it's pretty high. And it's a tough look. It's not an easy schedule for San Francisco this year, I tell you that.
It's interesting because you look at this list, we have Jaguars, Eagles, Lions, Bengals, 49ers, Broncos, Jets, and Falcons. Only team that sticks out to me as a team that could have a winning record is, like you said, the San Francisco 49ers. But go figure, they're in the hardest division in the entire NFL. That's a fascinating division. I mean, like you said, this division is going to be extremely fun to watch. And these divisional games are, again, going to be incredibly interesting to watch. Now, I do think all of the teams in that division will have winning records. That is something that I believe. That's one of my, I wouldn't say hot takes because I believe all those teams deserve winning records, but I definitely think that's one of my takes going into the season. One of the things I'm going to stand by. However, that is definitely something to watch. But let's step outside the 49ers for a second because the 49ers are the obvious one. That's the one that everyone's going to. Oh, listen, all these teams, I think, didn't do enough to say they could go from having bad records to having winning records. I mean, we're looking at the Jaguars, arguably botched the draft outside of the Trevor Lawrence pick. The rest of these teams, I feel like, are mid-rebuild, with the exception. Yeah, go ahead.
Like I think that maybe slightly above 500. The only other team that strikes me on this list, other than Denver, other than San Francisco, is Denver.
Yeah.
I think maybe they could squeak out a
That's
9.
Drew Lock, though. If Drew Lock can play good football, listen, this is the thing with them. They have a great defense. Their weapons are good. Young, developing offensive line. Everything is in place. I mean, I love Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon is good. If Drew Lock plays good football, I agree. They will have a winning record.
What we also can't deny is that we can blame Drew Lock all we want. Okay, I hate Drew Lock. You hate Drew Lock. Everyone that isn't delusional hates Drew Lock. Okay. Jerry Jeudy dropped 20% of his passes this year. That receiving core led the league in drop passes. I'm not saying that would make Drew Lock the GOAT, the savior of the Denver Broncos, but can't really blame him there. And my friend points out a fair bit. He's a huge Denver fan. Josh Allen, compare him to Drew Lock, their stats. That has zero to do with anything. Drew Lock has a good game and then 5 bad games. And then you're like, oh, he's terrible. Then he throws for 4 touchdowns. Where did that come from? I don't know. Drew Lock needs competition. And Teddy Bridgewater's not competition. Okay?
No? You really?
I'm convinced that the only quarterback they possibly could have traded for that had a starting job last year that Drew Lock can overtake is possibly Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not kidding. I like Teddy Bridgewater. I hate Drew Lock. But Teddy Bridgewater is not great.
But I think he's competition. You don't think he's competition? I think he will come in.
In that comparison to Davis Mills is competition, okay? He kind of is not really.
Well, I think Teddy Bridgewater, you look at, their last season, I think Teddy Bridgewater had a better season than Drew Lock.
Oh.
No. I'm not saying that means anything, but I think it's competition for Drew Lock. Right? We're talking about relatively to Drew Lock. What is going to challenge Drew Lock to play better football? I think bringing in Teddy Bridgewater will do that. Will help do that.
That's an insanely low bar.
But competition is competition. If it helps Drew Lock get better, if it motivates him more, who cares how good the player is? If it's going to make him work that much harder, at the end of the day, does it really matter?
Sure, no. But there's a lot of other fighting slots on Denver just as a whole. Their corners, they have 4 good corners. I think
that's an issue.
That's gonna be very interesting. Melvin Gordon, if you have him in a fantasy league, I am sorry for you. Melvin Gordon, if you thought his carries decreased last year, just wait till this year when Javonte Williams comes in. Why was this guy not taken earlier? Because teams don't need to reach on running backs.
You mentioned the corner thing, and we can debate whether Teddy Bridgewater is competition for Drew Lock or not, but Justin Fields, who was sitting there at pick 9, could not only come in and be competition for Drew Lock,
will win,
but he could come in and be the starter from day one, or you want to sit him on the bench, continue to have a quarterback battle as long as the season goes, do that too. Like, I don't care. Drafting Justin Fields would do one of two things. It would either give you your franchise quarterback in Justin Fields, and I know Mitch hates that, but it's true,
Yeah.
or it would light such a fire under Drew Lock's butt that he would become your franchise quarterback. Either way, it's a win. Drafting Patrick Surtain when you already have Kyle Fuller, great corner, Bryce Callahan, great corner, seems like a mistake to me. That seems like a mistake to me. And I think it's one that they're going to regret because as much as I hate to say it, because Justin Fields is on the Bears, I think Justin Fields is going to be a very good quarterback. And listen, okay, I know Mitch isn't going to like
very
this.
Good. Like, I can give you very good.
You can see it in his eyes, dude. Looking at the press conferences, at training camp, all the other 3 quarterbacks, all the other 4 quarterbacks, they have a big smile on their face. And Justin Fields is disrespected. He feels it. He has that. We talked about it. He is the best competitor out of any quarterback in this class. He is mad. And I feel like he's going to come out playing with a vengeance. And you know what happened last time he did that? He threw 6 touchdowns against Clemson and got to the national championship game.
That was a great game.
Great game. And that is what happens when Justin Fields gets mad. He heard everything about Trevor Lawrence. He heard all the stories about him dropping out of the top 10 too. I really think Justin Fields, that's going to just push Justin Fields over the edge. I really do. And the Denver Broncos honestly contributed to that because if they take him, I think it's a win-win for them. But listen, I think Justin Fields is going to be an excellent quarterback with the Denver Broncos. Or, excuse me, with the Chicago Bears.
I mean, like, as much as I hate Justin Fields, it's like Denver screwed up big time. Drafting a corner, which, again, Patrick Surtain, good corner, was not your primary need. Their primary need was almost, for the sake of being general and giving you kind of a take, anything but corner and wide receiver, kind of. Actually, they probably could have won wide receiver if they felt like it.
It would have been more justified than corner.
But I can't justify the corner, especially after signing Fuller this offseason. And Denver, I don't know. I don't really want to go into a hate rant with Denver because that happens on almost every episode. I'll go into my hate Denver rant probably when we do schedule reviews and such, because hopefully that'll be coming up soon. Now I'm talking about the opposite. Division winners, most likely to go from first to worst. Again, this probably means from first place to a losing record. Sam, I'm going to hand it off to you because I stole the obvious one here. Let's see, will you take the obvious one this time?
Yeah. Okay. This one, I have a couple teams here. I think, first of all, I think all these teams are good teams, and I think Washington will improve. And then I think every other division winner is pretty much going to stay the same, except for the New Orleans Saints. I mean, that's clearly the obvious one. They lose Drew Brees. And while I feel like I'm a little bit of a believer in Jameis Winston. I feel like I have more faith in him than most other people do.
I have a lot of faith.
Yeah, if I were to pick one division winner that would lose the most games out of all of these teams, it probably would be the Saints just because of the uncertainty with Jameis Winston and having to cut some significant players because of the salary cap issue. So that would be it for me. But listen, there are a lot of good teams on this list, and I really don't think any of them will have a losing record.
I think the only other team, and I know you're going to agree with me, like with regards to which of these possibly could have a losing record other than them, it's the Steelers. Okay. I don't think that the Steelers will, but I can see them taking a big step back next year. Look, it's not Pittsburgh's fault. They've literally done nothing wrong, and there's practically nothing they could have done at any point over the offseason. There's not one move that stood out to me on the Steelers, besides maybe not signing Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Well,
I would like to see that.
they didn't sign Ryan Fitzpatrick.
No, I would have liked to see them do that.
Oh. Are you serious?
Ryan Fitzpatrick would have done a better job, is going to do a better job in Washington.
That's fair. That's fair. However, I wanted to talk to you about something. You said you didn't see anything they could have done better. Listen, this has been a really unpopular opinion by me, but I have not been afraid to talk about it. I'm not a fan of the Najee Harris pick, dude. I really think I think they should have taken Tevin Jenkins there.
That's fair.
I mean, we've been talking since February about how we both, and me specifically, strongly believe that offensive tackle is the second most important position in football. And I think that teams should be drafting offensive tackle like quarterbacks are, similar to how quarterbacks are drafted, right? If you need a quarterback, that kind of outshines your other positional needs. I think it should be similar in the offensive tackle position, especially when your second biggest need is running back. Running backs are very replaceable, and they could have gotten Michael Carter in the second round, in the third round. So they didn't need to get Najee. I mean, listen, I understand Najee Harris. I think he's a very good player. I think he will be a very good player for the Steelers, but you didn't have any good starting tackles on the roster. And if I'm correct, they didn't draft one in the first 3 rounds. They drafted, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the interior offensive lineman from Illinois, good player, but not a tackle. Not a tackle. And Tevin Jenkins, a clear first-round prospect, is sitting there at pick 24. I agree with you, actually. I do think that the Steelers could be in for a bit of a regression. However, I'm not quick to jump on all the Steelers hate saying that they're going to go below 500 because
I don't know that.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, because this is a team that in one of the harder divisions, or probably the second hardest division in football last year, they won that division. And say what you will about their playoff performance, it was poor, to say the least. But this is still a team that can perform in the regular season. They've shown it, and they showed it last year. And, well, I think they will finish third in this division. I still don't think they will finish below 500.
I don't know if they'll be below 500. If they're going to be below 500, it'll probably be around the 8 and 9 range. If that's really the case. But, next year's quarterback class, the more and more I look at it, the more and more it's like, okay, at some point I'm going to end up finding 2 or 3 prospects that I really like. And, I'm not saying it's going to be Spencer Rattler. He's the number 1 overall pick. The Steelers probably won't get that. But I think that I can't name you a prospect now because obviously college football is not the season, almost season, probably like 9 more Saturdays or something.
Something like that.
I don't know. It's around that range.
Maybe 10, something like that.
You're a hype. Like, come on. Like,
we're all hype.
College football, underrated. It's criminally underrated. And like, I don't know where a lot of these guys' projected values are because we look at the quarterbacks heading into this season, heading into last season versus where they actually ended up placing. A lot of them got probably way ahead. Like Zach Wilson before last year was not a first-round pick. This now second overall. Anything can happen. But I think the Steelers next year have to prioritize getting a quarterback. I think that's pretty obvious because Ben Roethlisberger's getting up there in age. Dwayne Haskins is Dwayne Haskins. We know
that's something interesting, whether they give him a shot or not.
And then I think at some point they have to. I want to see what he does in the preseason, okay? Because this year is a huge up boost for every single rookie versus every rookie last year. They have preseason. They have time to prove themselves. Last year, they didn't have. This year, a lot of people crap on the preseason. It sucks. It's boring. Okay?
It has
It's
its value.
like there's some good value prospects that you're missing. It's good football. Like these guys aren't this is an exhibition game. These guys are playing for their careers, playing for signing bonus, playing for all these things. I'm not here to go on a rant about how amazing preseason football is, because if you don't really love football, it's not for you. But if you want to see how your new rookie offensive tackle plays in your system, you're drafted in the 5th round, you probably won't get a chance to see it other than in the preseason. So I think that a lot of teams will benefit in the preseason. I think Ben Roethlisberger will not get a lot of snaps. It will go to Dwayne Haskins, and I want to see how he manages that Mike Tomlin offense.
Going back to an earlier point you made, I agree. We've talked about a lot. This 2020 QB class isn't the best. It's not the strongest. But I would 2022. Did I say 2022?
My God, I feel old. 2022. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's weird. But it's not the strongest. It's not very top heavy like this year was with 4 potentially franchise quarterbacks. This year, maybe you have 2, and Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell, not the strongest prospects. I will say there's a lot of depth, though. There's JT Daniels, Keaton Slovis, Carson Strong, Malik Willis. There are a lot of guys that could be that player for your team, but they're not the strongest prospects. So sitting at maybe in the 20s, you probably will be able to get one of these potentially good quarterbacks. And if Ben Roethlisberger isn't ready to retire yet and he doesn't regress too poorly, then you could have one of these guys sit behind Ben Roethlisberger and learn a thing or two. But I think we're on the same page. I think the Saints are the most likely team to do the worst out of all of these eight, but the Steelers are probably in second place in terms of that as well. So that is going to wrap it up for episode 50, the big 50 of the First and Goal podcast. Yeah, a little golf clap in there. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Also 50 years old.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the First and Goal podcast. And of course, thank you guys for sticking with me for 50 episodes and making this podcast possible. Me and Mitch will see you next Tuesday. I will see you later on in this week for my podcast by myself. Subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating, and share it with a friend if you enjoy what you heard today. Means a lot and really helps us out over here. Also, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, First and Goal on YouTube. That is where you can find shorter, quicker analysis and opinion videos. Also, go swing by the website, firstandgoalfootballtalk.com, for articles on everything going on in the NFL and NCAA football. Also, go check out the Instagram page for quicker analysis and opinion infographics. That is where you can find that stuff on Instagram. That can be found at First and Goal FB on Instagram. So until next time, Sam and Mitch signing off.